You need an attitude adjustment. Have you ever used those words? Huh. Or maybe it was a boss or a teacher or a coach who suggested that that was true for you. Well, that's wonderful, but exactly what does that mean? Carburetors. Do you remember them? Yeah, they can need an adjustment, or maybe the door on a kitchen cabinet may need a minor adjustment. But people? How do you adjust them? It really isn't that easy. And where exactly would you find the tools to adjust a bad attitude? How would you know how to use them, let alone when the adjustment was right? Before you move on, why don't you take a few moments in your group to discuss a time in your past when somebody else accused you of having a really bad attitude. This week, we're going to look at two related, but not quite identical principles which every person should understand if they wish to be successful. The first matter we'll discuss, well, that's character development. The second is attitude awareness and then attitude improvement. There are a lot of ways that we could understand character, but I think that one of the best ways to define and then understand it is to imagine two pressurized vessels. One, like this flimsy balloon. The other, more like the steel tank on that air compressor. So let's let the material inside the vessels represent your values and everything that you hold personally dear. The balloon, it's able to hold a bit of air or a bit of water or something, and it's a container. But it is greatly influenced by the environment around it. If the outside pressure pushing in against it is small, the balloon will expand and adapt to that pressure. It will expand to fill up the available space. But if the outside pressure is great, it will begin to retract. The balloon holds something, but it holds it only in relationship to its environment. Well, now we'll take a look at the steel tank. It too is a container, good for holding something valuable. And yet it holds the contents at a reasonably consistent condition. It doesn't expand simply because the outside pressure is weak, nor is it crushed by the moderately high outside pressure. The steel walls and the design of the tank prevent the outside circumstances from either crushing it or causing it to blow up. Obviously, given enough pressure, it will be crushed, unless more pressure is applied to the inside to equalize the pressure that's already on the outside. Character is a bit like that. Character holds important values securely, yet doesn't allow them to blow out all over everyone else. But nor is it crushed by pressure placed on it from a stressful outer environment. Think about the difference between the balloon over here and the tank. The balloon clearly reveals the difference between pressure between the internal and the external. If the inequality of the pressure is noteworthy, the balloon, well, it'll either just blow up or it will implode. Yet the tank, on the other hand, holds its contents calmly and with very little regard for the condition of the environment around it. So we're each vessels, and we each contain what we've allowed to go into us, what we've intentionally placed in us, and also what we've kept from going into us. As humans, then, we're both the vessel and the contents in that illustration above. Some character qualities build up strong containers. Some character qualities become the valuable contents within those containers. Pause here for a moment and talk about some people you know who are either like the tank or the balloon. And then spend some time discussing people you know and admire and which of those containers they're most like. When you return, we'll pick up with a consideration of attitude. Attitude, well, that's slightly different. It isn't what's in us so much as it is the story that we tell ourselves each day about what is happening to us and why. So attitude is my emotional and my intellectual response to the environment around me. But my attitude is more than just that story. It's the real true belief about the story which will then determine how I act in each moment. My attitude may or may not be an accurate response to what's happening around me, but it will almost completely control how I behave in whatever situation I'm in. And because that's true, my attitude will become part of the environment itself. Part of the environment which will affect every other person and their character. So think of it this way. Attitude doesn't determine if you'll do your work tomorrow, but it will set the tone for how you'll think about your work. Attitude won't determine if you'll come home to your family tomorrow night, but it will determine the kind of person that they're going to meet at the door. Attitude also seems to linger, both the good ones and the bad ones. A bad one can infect our thinking and also the thinking of everyone around us. But a good one, well, that can bless us and inspire others. Maybe you'd like to look at it like this. When I was younger, my standard footwear was a pair of solid work boots with Vibram soles. I'm sure most of you know what I'm referring to. And if you do, well, then you'll know that one of the really great qualities about those shoe soles, well, it was that they could provide great traction. You'd be far less likely to slip on mud or even wet grass. But there was that equally annoying downside, too. They could really hold a lot of dirt or mud or even worse things, and it would stay in those soles for hours or even for the whole day, which meant that everywhere you walked, you'd be tracking whatever you'd walked in. Walk into someone's home, and along went the mud to leave footprints. Jump in your truck, and along went that mud. Once you had that stuff stuck, it was with you for the whole day, and you just kept spreading it around wherever you went. Attitude's a little like that. Whatever it is that's stuck on you, you'll spread it around wherever you go for the entire day. But there is one difference. In that boot example, you may not have had any choice but to walk through the mud. But attitude? Well, that's a choice. You may get that muck on yourself, but you don't need to keep it there all day and spread it around onto everything and onto the things of others. A solid character? Yeah, that's going to help prevent someone's messy attitude from sticking to you. And maybe your great attitude will help to ease the external pressure on someone else's character. But we find ourselves to be at our best when we're working to constantly strengthen our own character while we're also learning to tell ourselves better stories about the inevitably difficult times and difficult people which are going to come into our lives. The quality of your character and the resilience of your attitude are internal qualities, and you have great control over each. Yet amazingly, while both are internal qualities, they are often the very things which will transform your outer world and the outer world of those closest to you. Hey, you have some great discussion in your groups this week on both attitude and character.